guessing that's our cue. So I think we're live. Welcome, everybody. Good to see everybody. Nice to see you here in person. We are going to call the meeting to order and note attendance. And as always in our regular meetings, we are going to begin with flag salute. We now have a flag over here to the right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, and we are going to kick off this meeting with our board superintendent operating agreement reading. And Scott has offered to give us the first read. These are our sort of meeting norms, if you will.
Great, thanks, Jonathan. The Board of Directors is the educational policy making body for the Silver Falls School District. To effectively meet the system's challenges, the school board and superintendent must function together as a leadership team. To ensure unity among team members, effective group agreements must be in place. The following are the group agreements for the board and superintendent. Collaborative governance. Number one, members of the board and the superintendent will work together in good faith as a team in the best interests of students, modeling a willingness to learn together. Two, board members will recognize and respect the superintendent's responsibility to manage the school district and to direct employees in district and school matters. Three, board members will give careful consideration, listening to all perspectives, to all issues brought to the board by individuals and district leadership. Four, the board may only make decisions at properly called meetings. Board members recognize that individual members have no authority to take individual action in policy or district on school administrative matters, unless so authorized by the board. Communication agreements. Number one, board members must follow the chain of responsibility and communicate directly with the superintendent when a question arises or a concern or complaint is voiced by a staff member, student, parent, or community member. Two, board members will endeavor to communicate directly with the superintendent or board chair prior to meetings of the board to address questions and or concerns about agenda items. Board members and the superintendent recognize that good answers often require preparation in advance of board meetings. And three, when a board member and or the superintendent has an individual concern, he or she must communicate one-on-one with any board member of the board superintendent team as appropriate.
Thank you. As a reminder to everybody and to the public and those watching here, these are adopted annually by the board and superintendent, and these are the ones that we have in place for this year. All right, now we're up for our agenda review. You've all had a chance to see it, I hope, on board book. At this point, I would accept a motion to approve the agenda as published.
I move to approve the agenda as published.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Okay, Debbie.
Jonathan,
Yes.
Janet,
Yes.
Tom,
Aye.
Aaron,
Yes.
Lori,
Yes.
Jennifer,
Yes.
and Owen.
Yes.
Thank you all in favor.
All right, thanks, everybody. Well, next up is our consent agenda. And as is often always the case, I should say, we will I'll accept the motion to approve the consent agenda as published on Word Book.
I move to approve the consent agenda as published.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion on the consent agenda? All right, Debbie?
Jonathan,
Yes.
Janet,
Yes.
Tom,
Aye.
Aaron,
Yes.
Lori,
Yes.
Jennifer,
Yes.
Owen.
Yes.
Thank you all in favor.
Great, thank you. All right, now we are ready for our student representatives. Looks like it's going to be Hannah and Andrea, or Andrea, I'm not sure.
Hello, everyone. I'm Hannah Basher, the Silverton High School ASB Vice President.
And I'm Andrea Q, the Silverton High School ASB Secretary.
To start off, FFA returned from their national convention a week ago. Not only did they have an amazing experience, but they also took away some solid scores and medals.
FBLA is starting back up, and tonight they're having their new and returning member meeting tonight.
Mental Health Awareness Club is actively meeting and coming up with new ideas on how to support the students at Silverton High School.
Red Cross Club is currently planning another blood drive for tomorrow, Tuesday, November 10th or November 9th at Silverton High School.
Oregon Battle of the Books has been meeting and reading their books for the competition. Our GSA club is also meeting and finding new ways to unite and support our student body. Los Aguilas just completed their Day of the Dead celebration at Silverton High School. They constructed an ofrenda for all its students to view. An ofrenda is an offering placed in a home altar during the annual Dia de Muertos celebration.
The Silver Mask Thespian Society had a successful haunted house at SHS over the Halloween weekend. Many students came to enjoy the scare.
Our fall sports all finished off the regular season with an amazing accomplishment. Every one of our teams made it to the playoffs.
Our Lady Foxes soccer team made it to the playoffs but got knocked off in the first round. And our boys varsity soccer team made it to the quarterfinals and had a heartbreaking loss on Friday, 1-0 against the number 1 team in the state. Our girls and boys cross country team both qualified for the state championship meet. This was the first time in 25 years that our girls team has qualified. Our volleyball team made it to the top 8 and also had a tough loss. They played hard and had an amazing season. Our football team has their second round game this Friday against North Salem. They are currently ranked 2nd in state. Our choir and band both completed a successful concert at the end of October, and they both support SHS by performing at games and assemblies. They help us build a positive and spirited culture at SHS. ASB kicked off our Tree of Giving fundraiser on Friday. Today, we had our first official fundraiser, a spelling bee. It was well supported, and we look forward to the rest of our events. Fall Carnival, AG Bingo competition, AG Mario Kart competition, and the Matcha Volleyball tournament. Winter sports are right around the corner. Practices are beginning soon for swim team, wrestling, and basketball.
Finally, we'd like to say a special thanks to all veterans tonight and to all the family members of SFSD students who have served our country in the U.S. military.
And that wraps up our updates for clubs, activities, and sports at Silverton High School. Thanks for having us, and go Foxes.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Really
Thanks,
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Very much.
Excellent.
Right. And speaking of the high school, we have our high school principal report tonight. You want to give any kind of an
Sure,
introduction?
yeah, Jonathan, thank you. I'd like to introduce Mr. Sione Thompson, first-year principal of Silverton High School. Sione comes to us from Honolulu, Hawaii, where he served many years as a school leader and as a leader of multiple schools. Sione, welcome. This is your first time addressing the board here, and it's just great for them to have a chance to hear from you.
Thank you so much, Superintendent, Board Chair, members of the board. Appreciate having me here. Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, move the microphone.
Move the microphone, okay. Okay, we'll see if I can get my technology to work so I can share. Daniel told me how to do this. Now it's a matter of making sure I can. I will need to move this on. Oh, not share, sorry. Present. All right, thank you. Okay, we'll get started. Well, thank you. This is my first time. I greatly appreciate you guys, me having the ability to come and share some of the things that we've experienced over these last couple of months. It's really a pleasure and honor to serve the community of Silverton and the Silver Falls district. So tonight I'll be sharing with you 3 simple points. 2 of the 3 are our goals that are direct from the district. And I felt that it was very important that we stay as aligned as a school with our plan to the strategic plan of the district. And our goals are verbatim from the strategic plan of the district. And in each one of these goals, I could spend all night talking about them, but I'll just highlight just a few points for you. And if you have any further questions, I won't keep you here all night. Please, I invite you to come in and we can share and discuss how we're going through these goals and our processes for these goals. So the first one we'll talk about is our first goal, each student on track to graduate. Our second one, each student will have the SCL to navigate. And then I'll highlight some of the testimony. It's kind of a treat that I've been speaking with some of the students as to what does back in school in person 5 days a week mean to you. So as we go through this, I wanted to share the first goal is the data, last year's data. Last year's data on non-passing and F grades. So non-passing, the language is non-passing and F because last year there was the option as instead of having the F on the report card or your transcript to have non-passing. So these are last year's freshmen, this year's sophomores. 126 students account for 648 non-passing grades. Last year's sophomores, this year's juniors, 131 students account for 678. And last year's juniors, this year's seniors, 114 of them account for 503 non-passing grades. So the percentage that you see up there is the percentage of total students with one or more non-passing grades. This graph shows the total student population. So 371 is the total amount of students with one or more non-passing grades. 571 are the students that have all passing grades. They do not account for that 371 having one or more. And then 942 total students, that is minus the seniors. So that comes out to about 39.38% of the students in this data set have one or more non-passing grades. So that's the data that we're the baseline of what we're working from. So what are the mitigating factors and how are we attacking this right now and ensuring that our students are on track to graduate? Here are the efforts. The first and foremost, the biggest one obviously is credit recovery. So our credit recovery through Graduation Alliance and other partners, that's our online options to recover that credit. We also had summer school, 2 sessions, which accounted for over 350 recovered credits over the past summer. And then throughout, if there is space in their courses, then they just retake the course to retake it. We also have a math and English lab, which is other than the course that they're in. It's an extra course that assists in finding out where students are and getting to them to either grade level or skill level ability to where they need to be to help that. And also through the IDEA IEPs, our SPED department has done an amazing job in sifting through all of the IEPs and understanding if we fulfilled the accommodations and the hours of support services. And we're continuing to do that every day, and they're doing a great job. So were non-passing grades a result of the school or us not being able to meet their accommodations? We're really seeing that that's not the case, that we've done a very diligent job in supporting the IEP students. And then same with our ELD, our English language learners. The supports, the extra supports that they're receiving in order to get their core instruction of what they need to where they need to be in closing the gap and fulfilling some of the courses that they may not have passed last year. Moving forward, what we're doing this year in order to mitigate and respond to what we're seeing, a lot of the gaps are students starting to fall behind now from September to today. And the measurable, as stated in the strategic plan, is that by the end of the year, we're going to cut the percentage of students who receive non-passing grades in half compared to last year, the data that I just shared with you. So two of the bullet points, the major points here, and there's a lot of extra or more data that goes into this, but just to show you and share with you the process, is that students that are projected to not receive a grade at the end of the semester, a passing grade at the end of the semester, they'll be identified by December. Now, that's not to say that we haven't already started the identification process. That's just a date that we gave ourselves that as more data comes in, as the class progresses, we'll have more inputted grades, and then we'll have a stronger projected non-passing rate. The data will be collected from the October 7th and the November 19th grade marking periods. And then further data will be collected on the 22nd and 23rd when we have our parent-teacher meetings and conferences. And our care team every week meets, and they bring up those students that have been brought to the attention of the counselors, either attendance or behavior or other factors that might correlate with some of the low grades or failing grades. We're also looking at attendance, which we have to take with a grain of salt, because we do say, check your health. We're encouraging you to not attend school if you are sick. So we look at attendance very carefully in terms of those factors. Also, we're looking at missed assignments, 2 or more missed assignments. What does that mean? Why do we have missed assignments? That's another big data point for us. And then behavior. Does behavior referrals also correlate with some of the potential non-passing grades? So teachers and counselors, we will develop a plan for every student with a non-passing grade for the first semester. And that's both for semester courses and year-long courses. We have to articulate the plan, come up with a plan, articulate it, and share it out with the student and families. And that we have a date of middle of January. And that's not to say that these won't happen sooner. It's just there is a drop course, and there are discrepancies after the final grade comes in that will have a little bit of leeway. The second goal, each student has the SEL to navigate, and this again comes from our data last year. So we focused in on the question, I really feel a part of my school. We think that question kind of hones in at the center of belonging and respect, empathy, and a lot of fundamental factors as to why do you feel or not feel that you belong part of the school and the community. And this was, again, last year's 9th, 10th, 11th, this year's sophomore, junior, seniors. And you can see that on both ends of the disagree and strongly disagree and strongly agree, we had very few that were very definitive one way or the other. A little bit more with the disagree and agree, and most of them lived in the neither agree or disagree. And again, it was a very weird year last year, hybrid and not being in person. So maybe I didn't feel part of the school, but we have to start from some baseline, and we'll start from there as we move forward. This is the same question in that survey, just broken up by a different demographic, by ethnicity. And then we can kind of see it allows us to ask questions to our community, Latinx, Spanish, white, multiracial, or those who identify as other race or ethnicity. So we can kind of see, are there things that we have to do with these groups? Are they telling us things that we have to understand better of them? And then we can then have that communication piece. So one way that we're highlighting right now is I want to give huge thanks to our ASB program. I think this is a great program that through the AGs, they create a scope and sequence of SEL curriculum that each teacher will share and have conversations with their students in their AG. And this was one that was just recently shared out. And they have the flexibility. And it was really nice to see that with the leadership of Ms. Basher, that we were able to hear and see some things that were happening, some political and social activism on campus. And we said, well, what are some of the questions we need to ask ourselves as educators and ask our students in order to build those skill sets so we can have real, true civil discourse on our campus? And I know that students will learn from students much more than a principal in a gym on a mic lecturing to them. So I was very proud that they were able to share with us and create a video.
You like the Ducks?
Not?
No, they. You suck for liking them.
I'm not a loser Beaver fan.
Yeah, we definitely cannot be friends.
That's rude. And you Beavers.
Beavers, they are the best. Ducks. Really, that's interesting. Almost always win. Superior. I cannot. So stupid. Dumb for liking the Beavers, loser. What did you say about me? Are you a Duck fan?
Yeah, I am. Are you?
No, I'm a Beaver.
Oh, well, that's all right. The Ducks are a lot better, though.
I don't know. I personally like the Beavers better. I think our offense is really good.
I guess that's true. The Ducks have a lot of things that they could learn from them. But I do think that the Ducks' running game is a lot better than the Beavers.
Yeah, they had a super good game last week. Beavers suck.
Here's your flag.
Thank you. You're a Duck fan, though.
Yeah, but I don't think it was cool that she disrespects your property.
Yeah. Hey, Grace, who do you think will win the Civil War this year? Ducks all the way. Ducks are the best team ever. No, I think the Beavers are the greatest team in the world, and they're definitely going to win. Oh, well, I guess that's okay. It's really cool that you're passionate about that, though. My family has been a Beavers fan ever since my grandpa graduated from OSU in the 1960s. And my mom graduated from U of O, so that's why we support them. I think it's cool we both have family connections to our teams. Yeah, even though we disagree, I can see why you believe what you do. Me too. So isn't it cool that all the Silverton teams made it to playoffs this year?
Sometimes it's best to just not get involved, even if you disagree.
I thought that was a cute way to show some of the things and disagreements that we have every day. Back to okay, so the other way that we're going to continue to meet our goal that all students have the SEO to navigate is what I believe is a three-tiered prong approach. And I believe that we have to create more opportunities for voice, for real voice and for input. And that with the parents, teachers, and students. So not just through student body government, but also having a platform for students to be able to safely and effectively express themselves on all types of matters. So we're going to go through processes that allow for students to share, to be a part of things, to understand that they need to own their education. They need to own their space and the place that they live in. Same thing with teachers. And when I say teachers, I mean the entire teaching team, administrators and counselors need time to have discussions with each other. What are they seeing? How are parents responding? How are students responding? And how can we better respond to those needs? And we need to identify those needs. So how do we identify those needs as educators? And then parents, I definitely believe that having a parent organization that can come together and share and share from their perspectives as a parent, where I am the expert in parenting my child, then I can share some of those with the educators. Because the more we know from parents' expertise, the more we can support. And I think that that's that happy medium of understanding where education and where parenting and where we can live together and support one another. So that's the three-prong approach in having that input and feedback. And also to establish that culture of respect and trust. And I said, establish a culture of trust, respect, and discourse at the school that's solution-based. And I think that's extremely important. I think all of you here have trust and respect. That's why you're at this table. And I think a lot of times, if we allow if we allow the narrative to get away from us and dictate our behaviors through social media and through emails or Twitter or text messages, then those are the behaviors that do not show true discourse, respect, and build trust and build culture. So I know what I'm asking is that a lot of times, because you're such a true, trusted, respected person of our community, there are going to be a lot of folks that come to you because you are so trusted with concerns. And those concerns are valid and they need to be looked into. And the response would very much help all of the officials here at the school if it was that of, well, what did the teacher say about that? What did your teacher say about that? Because that is a very, very concerning to me. What did the administration, what did Principal Thompson say about that? And then we can start at the school. And if things aren't resolved, then obviously they need to move its way up. And I think that building that culture of response, communication, trust, and respect is really going to assist in bringing to life and building the skills necessary in our students to have that true discourse. Because we live in this community of Silverton, we live in the community of Silver Falls, of Oregon, of the United States, and of the world. And we want our students to be able to navigate the world, not just their backyard. And I think this is going to be an important part of moving this forward. So that's my ask to you. And this is the treat. After our first two goals, having conversations with students, being in person, it was just a delight to hear some anecdotal responses. These are some of the testimonies that you can read. I'll read them because I thought that they were so touching. You know, I was depressed. I fell behind academically. This year, I'm in class doing better, feel better, happy to be with friends. I just couldn't learn online. It wasn't good. I felt lost. Now my teachers are helping me. My friends are helping me. I'm actually learning. If I stayed hybrid, I wouldn't continue. I just work. Being back, I feel like I want to experience more and pursue college. Experiencing homecoming, sports, dances, makes it all worth it. Silverton is about friends, family, creating memories. You can't do that if we're not in person. And these were our students sharing, and there's so many more statements just like this. So thank you all for leading our district. I appreciate being in person 5 days a week. It makes a difference. And I'm very honored to be the principal here and serve your community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
If any of you have questions about Sienna's presentation, you can direct those to me and I'd be happy to follow up with you.
I just
Thank you,
wanted to
Sione.
say thanks, Sione, for coming, especially hitting on that unit that you're going through on civil discourse. I think we have a horrible plague in our society today we've lost the art of disagreement. And I know in our own home, and I know I think probably all of us are trying to model with our kids, it's okay to disagree. Disagreement is healthy. Disagreement is normal. So the more we can do to impress that on our kids is so critical at this time when our society, our world, our country can be so divided in so many ways. Learning how to work through disagreement, yet valuing and respecting one another is so key. So thanks for really hitting on that. It's really, really impressive.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Okay. Well, next on the agenda, we have SFBA presentations.
Good evening.
Evening, Allison.
I'm Allison Stolfus, again, SFBA president. And yeah, it's been like, the past month, I think feels a lot longer than a month, in a lot of ways. The news I have to share with you is we did sign our MOU, just over, I guess, 2 weeks ago, our latest MOU. We've done 3 in the past year. And we're just really, really excited and really thankful to the district for our thoughtful negotiation on this. And so important tenets of this would be if we were to contract like COVID in the classroom, that our sick leave is protected. I think a lot of our younger teachers were especially worried about that, since our sick leave is our maternity, paternity leave. So you're looking at some serious financial risk if you are not protected. We're very excited. A lot of our teachers are having to spend their prep time. So that's their protected time. For me, on most days, that's 45 minutes to like 50 minutes. That's what I have to get ready for 3 science lab classes. So we're subbing for each other during those prep times at the high school, or sometimes at the smaller schools. They're absorbing whole classrooms into their rooms because we're in a sub shortage. And so we're being better compensated for that. And it just feels like you're honoring the sacrifice a little bit more. Yeah, we're really grateful to have that done. And we're grateful to be done negotiating that aspect. We are currently talking about a different aspect, which is how to support our kids in quarantine. At the lower levels, that looks like constant communication and actually printing physical copies for kids. For me, at the high school or for like the middle school, I have upwards of 200 kids a day. And I would say maybe 2 or 3 are in quarantine. In addition to that, we have a lot of really just kind of screwy absences. I guess I'd say kids did not come out of this totally scot-free, totally undamaged. And we do have some attendance problems I think we've always had, but they're exacerbated by what's happened. So it's a lot of, emailing and contacting and supporting and caring and encouraging kids along the way. And so we're negotiating that currently of how we can make that work a little easier to swallow. And district has been a great partner in that. So I'd like to say formally on behalf of just about any teacher I've talked to, this Friday to get that as work time is a true gift. If you asked any teacher what they want for Christmas, they just want more time. A lot of us in this district, it's a very stable district as far as, serving as an employee. And a lot of us have been in these positions for a long time and we know the job we need to do. It's a different job this year. Our kids are coming with all kinds of needs. I was telling Dan last week that usually, yeah, I can grade and walk around and help my kids in lab. And it's doesn't matter what level student, it's all hands on deck. And it's just I need time to stop, take inventory. Just really appreciate it. And thank you so much for giving that and for listening. We all really appreciate it. So thank you. I read on OPB News this morning, there was upwards of 12 districts doing the same thing. And yeah, it's really, really needed and necessary. Thank you. I think the last thing that I would like to ask on behalf of our teachers, and I represent over 200 teachers, 217 teachers in the district, are members of SFEA, is just a continued understanding that that anything new, any new demands, any of those things, I think we really need to ask for our staff. Is it necessary now? And how can we just give teachers just that time and space to work? I think we have a lot of staff that we're doing our jobs, but we're also supporting colleagues. I personally have canceled doctor's appointments because we couldn't find subs, and I don't want my colleagues to end up watching my class. At the smaller schools, we have 2 vacancies at Central Howell. We have a vacancy at the high school, which I don't know if we filled yet, right? All of these things take demand, like to have a sub that you have to support takes an hour out of your day. And we don't really have an hour left to give. And so I guess just a constant understanding that this year is really, really challenging, and we're holding up as well as we can, but it's just tremendously demanding. Yeah, but I think in November, we've kind of settled into our routines a little bit. It's not quite as like overwhelming, like we know what it is. It's just now it's just kind of that maintenance run. It's just trying to keep it going, to keep the momentum going, I guess, and take care of yourself so that you can get up and do it the next day. So, and that is all I have. Do you have any questions?
None here, but I really appreciate you sharing.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Allison.
you. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. All right, I believe Michelle is going to also present from OSCA. Is she online? Is that okay?
Yes, she is. Daniel, can you promote Michelle Livingston as a panelist? All right, Michelle, I think you're on. There you go.
Am. Yep. That was an error on my part.
No problem.
Am I good? Okay, how does that sound?
Sounds
Crystal
good.
clear. Are we supposed to be able to see her, or is she just audio?
You should. My video's on.
I can see it.
Oh, there we go. Perfect.
All right. Hello, everyone. I just have a couple notes to share tonight from our classified leadership. First off, for the past month, we've noticed a turn to the better. Our voices in the food service department are being heard, and we're hopeful for actions to be taken to improve on their working conditions and concerns they've had this year. It's very much appreciated. Thank you. Our next note, our chapter's executive board would like to extend an immense thank you to the district leadership and school board for making November 12th an in-service day. This will provide some relief, allowing us to catch up on some of our work and ease the mounting burden of being overworked, overwhelmed, and burning out. Again, a huge thank you to leadership and the school board. You guys, this is awesome. It's very much appreciated and feels like a chance to take a breath. It's been a whirlwind of a start to the year, and we appreciate it. Thank you. That's what I have.
Well, thanks, Michelle.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you, Michelle.
Yeah, we
Thank
really
you.
appreciate hearing that.
Thank you.
Okay, well, this brings us to our first public comment period, and while people are getting ready and thinking about presenting, I will read the statement that the board reads at the beginning. We are glad you are here and welcome you to address the board at this time with your ideas, concerns, or compliments. If you wish to speak, please raise your hand if you're out here to be recognized by the board chair. If you are attending remotely, please email the board secretary, Debbie Balla, or put your request in the chat feature of Zoom, which should be enabled during this time. Before beginning your comment, please provide for the record your name, address, relationship to the district, and the subject of your comment. In order to ensure equity among speakers, remarks are limited to 3 minutes per individual. If a group of 3 or more wishes to appoint a representative, the comment time will be extended to 5 minutes. A second public comment period will occur later in the agenda, specific to action items and discussion items. Please be aware that the board's role during the public comment period is to listen. Rarely will members of the public receive an immediate response to their questions or comments. And finally, the board will not hear complaints against individual staff or board members during the public comment period. Remember that we all model the way for our students. We ask that you share your thoughts respectfully and in accordance with the board's decorum policy. Thank you. Anybody in the audience looking to present tonight? Come on up.
As a clarification, Jonathan, so we're using the raise hand feature for those that are on Zoom.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
My wife and I moved here only about a year ago, and so we're pretty new to this area. You might tell by my gray hair, I don't have any kids in the school that I know of. Oops, yeah. But I only got 3 minutes, so I'm going to try and I've whittled this down to as little as I can because I know you don't want to. You've already got enough work to do here to listen to me. But I'd like to just, I was a school board member, so I kind of know the drill. I didn't know the drill that you've been through the last 2 years, however, so that's kind of different. But there's always surprises when you're on the board. I'd just like to respectfully suggest kind of an urgent motion that a board member might make. I would say tonight, it's probably impossible for me to think that you do this, but make a motion in a second just to have for discussion purposes. And I'm going to read what I'm going to suggest for it, and then I'll kind of explain why I did it. So resolved, with respect to a potential state COVID immunization mandate, the Silver Falls School District shall remain neutral and therefore will not approve, disapprove, or enforce the COVID immunization status of any district student as a condition to attend school in this district, unquote. I think it's fairly self-explanatory, but in other words, allow the parents to decide what's best for their children without the huge burden of possibly thinking about withdrawing their child from the school district. And I noted that your attendances or your your numbers are down 10% this year already. You don't need any more excuses to have people pull their kids out. But there's probably a number that might. I would hope not. But anyway, let me explain why I'm suggesting this. You might already have some ideas. But everyone from the FDA, CDC, and Oregon Health Authority, the government, so California, Washington, Oregon, the governors, all of them know that school age students have almost 100% natural immunity from COVID, as verified by CDC's own statistics. You can get online there and see that. It's not too hard. No one, including all the institutions above, knows the short or long-term effects of these experimental injections. And for children under 18 with long lives to look forward to, that's a risk just all by itself to give district families the option of choice in this matter.
About 10 seconds.
Are you going to hold me to 10 seconds?
His decision. I just do the time.
We're going to try to stick to our 3 minutes because that's our policy. Thanks.
Time's up.
Well, we took up a few. Go ahead and finish up your few thoughts here.
Thank you. If you're concerned about the legality of such an, I can just mention that, the mandate hasn't been made yet. And so you wouldn't be violating any mandate that has already been made since they haven't. Perhaps the governor might not make it, which would be nice. And then you can have the choice to do it here. Shorten this up a little bit here.
Keep it real brief, please. I don't want to go too much over.
Yeah, well, I shall try. Decisions about school buildings, hiring superintendents, bus transportation, all those things that you do aren't as important as the decision about what you're going to have to suggest that children go through with injections here. So it's why continue a charade of local control if all we do is just let the rubber stamp requirements from the state. This is a really important thing, and we don't have much time here to do it because it might very well be a mandate made very, very quickly. Again, parents, not the state and the district, should decide the issue. And I think there is something we can all agree on. When you combine science with politics, you get politics.
Thank you. Do we have anybody else in the audience that wishes to address the board tonight? Okay. Ma'am, I'd like to hear your comments, but we'd like you to introduce yourself for the record and come on, if you don't mind, come on up, please. We gotta conform to the mask requirement tonight, please.
So I would like someone to explain something a little bit more about.
We can follow up with you with a response to that. Thank you.
Jonathan, I'd be happy to respond to that. I could just give you a statistic that in December 2019, Oregon had 8,000 licensed substitutes. And as of September this year, it's down to 4,000. So we're just short subs across the state. And we're doing all we can to try to recruit them.
Thanks for jumping on that. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Would you like to address the board tonight? So you're welcome to present to the board. And if you have a question specifically for Siona, you're welcome to send him an email or set up an appointment with him. Can you come up, please, and introduce yourself? Thank you.
My name is Margaret Highland. I am a resident of Silverton, Aberquan Road, and I very much appreciated the explanations of SEL. But what I am wondering is that tailor-made for age-appropriate lessons with the children as they as they go from K through 12? That's my question.
Okay. I'm sure somebody would be happy to follow up with you on that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Right, anybody online that's raised a hand?
We have Sarah Barth online, who's been promoted to panelist.
Okay.
Good evening. My name is Sarah Barth, and I am speaking on behalf of Central Howell School in my role as a teacher alongside two other colleagues. I've worked at Central Howell for 6 years. Alice has worked here for 5 years, and Ashley has worked here for 18 years. We are the only returning classroom teachers this year. We would like it stated on public record that Central Howell has had a huge employee turnover. 10 out of 16 staff left by the beginning of the fall of this year. Some of this was personal choice, but some of it was clearly the district choice. We have a brand new interim principal, a new head teacher position, and a brand new head teacher, in addition to a new PE teacher, a new kindergarten teacher, a new 4-5 teacher, and new assistants, along with a missing 7-8 homeroom teacher. Citing enrollment concerns, one full-time teaching position was eliminated, increasing our class size to 25 in the lower grades and up to 27 in the upper grades in split grade classrooms. You can imagine the range of needs and abilities we are trying to meet with 2 grade levels per classroom after a pandemic. We are a rather isolated school with no Title I services and a skeleton staff. We're not here to get to the weeds or cast any blame, but it has been an extremely chaotic start to our school year. Grades 4 through 8 have been particularly impacted because I've been the only permanent classroom teacher in those grade levels since the beginning of the school year. I've had 5th graders added to my 6, 7, 8 roster to teach math and science. Our 4 through 8 students have been taught long-term by substitutes who do not have teaching licenses. Obviously, they are not held to the same standards as highly qualified licensed teachers, creating even larger learning deficits. This has created extreme pressure on existing teachers. Studies have shown the average learning loss during the pandemic was 4 months in math and 5 months in reading. This means Central Howell students could potentially be losing upwards of 7 months of math and 8 months of reading. This worries us and distresses us regarding the future education of these students and how this will impact student scores and reflect on teacher performance. Today is November 7th, which makes this the 10th week of school. The 4th, 5th grade teacher finally starts this Wednesday, November 9th. We are still missing a 7, 8 homeroom teacher, which is a critical position as this teacher teaches language arts and social studies for grades 6 to 8. As far as we know, we have no permanent teacher hired for this position as of yet. It is almost time for conferences and a new term, and we're missing a teacher. Additionally, like other schools, we have students going in and out of quarantine, adding more to our teachers' workload. Our purpose here tonight is to let the school board and the public know of the extremely challenging situation out at Central Howell. We would like to invite anyone eligible to receive an emergency sub-license, this is a public service announcement, to please sign up so that teachers can actually take a day off when they're sick or an occasional personal day to spend with their families. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, and Debbie Valoff, Alice is actually here in my house and she's going to speak next, if that's okay.
Hi, I'm Alice Michael, and I have worked in the school district for over 30 years. And I just am here in support of Sarah and everything she said, because I agree, especially that part about the grade level splits and how difficult that is to teach when you have a large class. So losing that position is a hardship for our school. Thank you.
Thank you guys for sharing.
Thank you.
Are there other hands raised? Anybody online? Can you
I
see
do
it?
not see any hands raised at this time.
Okay. And anybody else from the audience here? Okay. We will continue.
Oh, hold on. Looks like Ashley's got her hand raised there.
All right.
Hello,
Hi there.
my name is Ashley Gould. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. I agree with the issues that Sarah stated. I would also like to bring attention to the one position at our small school at Central Howell. It was eliminated. However, a new administration position was created just this year. Let's put our money back where it counts, back in the classroom for the kids. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. There's no current ones with hands raised, is that right?
No, there's now Leslie Tromlitz, CF.
Oh, okay.
Daniel, are you able to promote Leslie?
We're still working on.
Well, and let's see. Actually disappeared on here, so I think maybe we move on, and if Leslie gets back on, maybe in the next round of public comment.
Okay, well, we do have a second public comment, so we will continue forward. All right, that brings us to administrator and staff reports, and first up, we have our superintendent update.
Thank you, Jonathan. Part of my time, I wanted to spend updating you on the progress towards my goals in Silver Falls School District as superintendent. But before I do that, I just have some general updates, COVID updates for the district. And these were all communicated out last week. So none of this information is new, but I thought that since we have a public meeting tonight, it's always nice to lead off and to just reiterate what some of the communication I've requested from, some of the information I've requested from ODE regarding quarantines, mask requirements, and then also the monthly reviews of data that are part of the OAR, the Oregon Administrative Rule. Just an update on that, or at least how that's going. And I've been in contact with Colt Gill, director of ODE, and to Colt's credit, every time I reach out to him, he gets back to me within 24 hours. And I thought it warranted in this communication to send out the exact email that he sent me so that everybody knows that we're really striving to get as much information as we can during this prolonged crisis. And also, I think it's important that we take every opportunity to be transparent with the information that we have. And so with quarantining, Colt mentioned in his communications that he's working on trying to get local public health authorities to lessen the days in quarantine. And this idea of getting them possibly reduced to 7 days in a quarantine. Nothing's been done yet, but he's working hard on that. He's also working on a test to stay program, testing and to remain in school and not having to quarantine. Again, those are just things that he's working on. There haven't been any decisions that have been made yet. And we also have optional vaccination for 5 to 11-year-olds. And here in Silverton, we're trying to get information out to our families for optional vaccination clinics, just to make sure that our parent community, should they so choose, have the option and the availability to receive the vaccine for their child. In masking, I was reminded that 1 in 5 cases are children. 1 in 5 COVID cases are children, and that the numbers had been falling but are leveling off and now increasing. And as far as Colt is concerned, that masks will be required for the foreseeable future. And then, of course, he makes a good point to say that the goal is 5 days a week per school, and we are extremely grateful for that. I don't think there's any of us that want to go back to a remote learning environment. When it comes to the monthly reviews, what Colt Gill explained to me was that it's not monthly reviews, it's actually weekly. And they have brought together a collaborative group to look at case rates, hospitalizations, and vaccination rates as the primary metrics. And that was a collaborative process to determine which metrics they deemed most important. And he made it a point to mention in his communication to me that part of the members of that group were made up of both for and against the topic of vaccinations to arrive at the best possible answer as to which metrics are the most important to look at. So I've also added in there the ODE Health Advisory document. There's a lot of information in there. I will have Debbie post this presentation with this link on Board Book, so it'll be accessible to the public, and it also went out, I believe, with our Parent Square communication to our parent community last week. Any questions on that? And again, you have all the information that I've received. This is just another way to reiterate that for our public.
It's not so much a question, but it's an observation, you know, at no point have they announced any target metrics, which I find troubling because it doesn't give anybody anything to look at, wonder about, pay attention to, think you're getting close, wonder if you're getting close. It's just sort of black box. So that's disappointing, but not really a question.
And Scott, I just want to say thanks for really reaching out to Colt Gill and the ODE just to nudge them a bit to say where are we going and what's the updates and where are we at with some of these metrics? What are the goals, the endpoint? Now, we didn't necessarily get any endpoints or specific metrics in detail that they're hoping for the future state, but I think the more they hear from you, from the other superintendents in our state, I think they're going to have to at some point say this is the future part of where we're going to be planning for, because we're at a point now we're going to have to look to the future. And I think that the ODA does that, owes that to the students, to the schools, to the staff, and then to our communities. So I appreciate you doing that. Also on the idea of quarantining, I'm glad to hear that there's some changing to the potential changes going to that. I think that, and we have our teachers in here in the room, that is just absolutely crippling our students' ability to learn. I know my daughter's friends have been quarantined. Several of them, we've had personal family friends that have been quarantined, kids who've been quarantined, kids that were, high performing students and are now just struggling to scrape by right now to get caught up. So anything we can do to get them back to school safely in a short amount of time, I'm glad to see that that's up for change, and maybe even like a test to stay program, which would be so vital for our kids to get back into school. So, thanks.
Thanks, Aaron.
Yeah, Scott, thanks. On the quarantining, it's good to see that there's some movement, I think, or discussion. My question is, do you have any? We've been quarantining kids who have been in contact, who have been in the proximity of positive COVID tests, right? Do we have any data on, have any of those quarantine kids tested positive? Are we tracking that? I'm trying to see, are we transmitting here at school? You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
It does make sense. I don't have a specific answer for you, Tom.
Okay.
On that, except to say that we are following the OAR and the guidance on quarantining. We also have the COVID dashboard as well, but in terms of kids who are quarantined, are they contracting COVID? I don't have those numbers in front of me.
Is that something you think you could provide?
I could certainly look into that.
Yeah,
certainly.
Yeah, thank you. Because they'd just be, it's data, it would indicate whether we're transmitting at school or not. So thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Okay. Well, the second part, I just wanted to give you an update. Of course, you know that we adopted a new superintendent evaluation put together by COSA and OSBA. Last year was the first year we piloted that. This is going into the second year. This is a little bit unusual because I have requested and I've remained adamant that all of my evaluation be done in public session, not an executive session. I think it's important because if I expect our leaders in Silver Falls to model giving and receiving feedback, then it all starts with me. And we have an expectation of our leaders here in Silver Falls that anything we ask our staff to do, we will do also. And so that's a big reason for doing this in public session. And I think I put together some slides here to kind of bring you up to speed on where we are with a few things related to that. Couple thoughts to consider before I get into the slides. And that is when you see these slides, I want you to keep in mind one of the things, which is the hedgehog concept. That's a rather simplistic concept, but a very powerful one at that. And if you remember, many of you were in the August Leadership Institute with me, and I've brought this up in work sessions also, where I had you do a little bit of reading on that. And it's 3 concentric circles, and that is what we believe we can be the best at as a school district. And I happen to believe, as a superintendent of the school district, that we can be the best at teaching and learning in a standards-based model, which I'll get into guaranteed and viable curriculum in a minute. I think it's pretty obvious what we're deeply passionate about, and that is seeing kids reach their full potential. And what drives our success engine is interesting, because in any business or any organization that creates revenue, it's pretty easy to determine what drives their economic engine. For us in Silver Falls, the way I see it is our community's trust in us, our community's faith in our schools. The more we succeed, the greater our community's faith, the greater our community's trust in our schools, and that translates into everything that we do. And so that gives you an idea of sort of how all these ideas come together. And secondly, there's 2 concepts, feedback and teamwork, that are at the heart of everything we're working on in Silver Falls right now. All of you can see the research done on feedback and teamwork. It's indisputable. The effect size that feedback can have on student learning. You see the effect size of 0.73. To put it in simple terms, a 0.4 feedback effect size is a child making 1 year's worth of growth. So you can see on the upper end of teacher effects, teachers are doing an outstanding job. They have an effect to make a year's worth of growth on a child. Feedback can almost double that, just by giving a child feedback at a point in time on what it is that is expected to be learned and what it is that we intend to be taught. The other is collective teacher efficacy. It's a fancy word for teamwork. And that effect size you can see is 1.57. That means that when fully realized, teacher teams that come together within a guaranteed and viable curriculum can affect 4 years worth of growth in 1 year. And that information comes from meta-analyses done by John Hattie. I'd encourage anybody listening to this presentation to look that up. And that is a phenomenal number. But if you think about really qualified teachers working together around a central focus of teaching and learning, which are our state standards and assessments, that magic actually happens. And so those are 2 extraordinary concepts that we incorporate into what it is that we're doing. And just for the purposes of your own understanding as a board, I have the plan I shared with you that you approved unanimously. And then we have a rubric, which is the OSBA COSA superintendent evaluation. So the 2 go together, and I think you'll see, but under visionary leadership, to me, when I see Silver Falls as a whole, I obviously gravitate right towards the strategic plan, because that's what the board has for their 5-year plan. And that's important. It's important for me because I need to know what the direction is of the district so I can operationalize that into a focus, which is what you see in the visual up there. And I spent an 8-hour day with almost all of you in August going through exactly what that visual means. And it's the mission and vision of the district and the 3 goals to be able to get there. And then there's the operationalized plan that you have, which is the 4-page document that I've included in my weekly updates. So it all starts there. It's the board understanding the strategic plan. It's the superintendent coming to the board with an operationalized 1-year version of what that will look like this year in 2021, 2022, and being very clear with the strategies that will get us to those 3 goals. And next, it's all about communicating that. So obviously you're with me in August, and we had our leadership from our classified, certified, and confidential employees during that day as well. It's great to have them there. I've spent time doing in-services with our central office. And our teachers and staff, we're starting tomorrow with our listening sessions, which I believe are we're going to try to have them weekly or at least every other week, depending on when staff meetings line up, which is our listening sessions with teachers and staff. We're starting here at the high school tomorrow in the auditorium at 8 a.m. And those will continue for the remainder of the year. And then if you've been at any of our K-8 listening sessions, we've had 7 of them since September. You know that you've seen this visual as well, because the third goal of our strategic plan is around facilities, and everything in Silver Falls ties back to a facility for sure. And so those are ongoing, this frequent communication with our public and stakeholder groups to communicate the focus of the plan for this year. We're also implementing a new leadership framework, which is aligned to both the strategic plan and this operationalized focus that's being rolled out to principals and directors. And we are right in the middle of meeting with each of our principals and directors this month to go over their plans to address the 3 goals listed in this focus, and as well as a couple of other items. But it's really about making sure that from the strategic plan to the focus to the building level plans, that there's 100% alignment in what the goal is. So for me, it's the what, communicating the what. For the principals, it's to communicate back to us the how, for how that's going to look at, say, Silverton High School. Sione did a very nice job of summarizing Silverton High School's focus, doing their part to address the district strategic plan. And lastly, on this slide, I just want to mention that that it's really about promoting and embedding and connecting the work we're doing to everything we're asking of our staff. And so, and that means that we're not opposed to adjusting our plan going forward this year. If we find that things aren't going well, or that things can be redirected in another way. We had an additional hour of PLC time on a weekly basis. We needed to pull back on that, just given the workload issues and everything else. Really trying to tie everything back to what is most important in our district, and trying to make sure that our staff and teachers have the support they need to be successful in such difficult circumstances. Sione also touched on the belonging and community building, which is also a very important part. And the last one, and I really feel that this is the most important issue facing Silver Falls, and that is when the board chooses to go out for a bond. Our facilities are in dire need of repair. Almost every single facility that we have in this district is in need of major repairs. If you totaled all of them up, that would equal $175 million. We've got to address our facilities, and we've got to address our facilities soon. And that will be something that you'll grapple with as a board, and you'll give me direction on when you think it's appropriate for us to consider that as a district. But we are not losing any ground, taking every advantage we can to put us in an excellent position once you feel that time is right. Going to the meat of our work, the really core, the quintessence of our work around teaching and learning, you can see that it hits 3 standards there, and I just circled the language. You can review that at a later time. It's kind of hard to see. But a guaranteed and viable curriculum means, what do we expect kids to learn, and how will we know when they've learned it? And how will we teach it in the amount of time that we have? So we're guaranteeing that for every child. We're not playing the educational lottery where a child might get it with one teacher, might not get it with another. We're making a conscious effort to make sure that we're mapping standards and that we can make it viable in terms of teaching it within an instructional school year as well. I've added in some data up there above. Again, this is baseline data. This is grades K through 8. Sione went over what the secondary grades or what the middle school and high school are grappling with in terms of numbers of failing grades. They're also going from the quarter system to the semester system. So they'll have a better idea in December of what that baseline will look like. And Our goal this year is to cut those numbers in half. So that's a number we can work with. If you look there, if you see on the slide there, reading and math, our STAR data, K through 8, that's benchmark data. If you ask me how I feel about that, well, given everything that we've been through in the school district over the past year, I would say it's baseline data. And so what we want to know is, what is the effect of our adult actions this year on this data? And I'll come back to you in February with an update on that. And that's reading and math there. In terms of a progress check on our work in teaching and learning, we have projection maps for every grade level and every subject area. That is to say that we know the exact amount of standards taught in one instructional year and how those standards are divided up into units. And each of those units is assigned a number of instructional days. So we can guarantee to our community that when a child comes to us here in Silver Falls School District, that they will receive a full year's worth of curriculum and instruction. That's just to get the standards mapped out. We did that all last year. That was a Herculean effort. We had teacher teams working on that. And that's the magic of this work, is that it's driven 100% by our teachers, who are the experts, who are the ones working directly with kids. And this year, our teachers are working on unit mapping. So we've taken the standards, figured out how many we have to teach in 1 year, divided them into units. And teachers this year are building units. They received training in August. Our administrators have been trained in unit mapping as well. And we have a professional development framework that is job embedded with coaching. And so if any of you know the research, Jennifer, I know you do as an educator, that professional development models can vary widely, but the research is indisputable that PD frameworks with coaching and that are job embedded are the most effective by far. And that's the framework that we subscribe to. And I think the powerful part of the unit mapping piece are the authentic PLCs, where teachers are grouped together by subject area and secondary department, if you will. And then in grades K-8, principals had a lot of flexibility to form teams that they felt would work best together. And we have teams, a lot of our teams that are cross-building, so multiple schools. And each principal is responsible for a set number of PLCs. And those teachers may or may not be in their school. And so it's just a new way of thinking and being more flexible with our resources and making it work for an unusual configuration that we have here in Silver Falls. It's one of the things that makes us unique and special. And it's also one of the ways we're making this work for our school district. And we've moved all of that work to early release time. And that has been key. We realized pretty quickly after the first several weeks of school that that extra hour a week was not going to work. So we pulled back on that. And if you ask me in terms of the way I see it, I don't see us moving out of moving that work out of early release time. What we need is, and I'll be working with you as a board as we get closer to the springtime, is we need additional early release days to get this work done. 9 is just not enough. And so we'll be working on that, and I'll be bringing back to you compelling reasons for why that is, as well as, testimony from staff as well that I think would help inform your decision. What we want to do is get to a point where our teachers know that the amount of time needed to do this work has already been embedded in the year-long schedule. That is really, really important. So they can plan how their work year is going to go. They can see what the progression will be of this work. And we've taken what would normally be a one year amount of time to do unit mapping and moved it into 2 years. And that's because we're coming out of hopefully what is the tail end of a pandemic, and we'll be getting back to regular business, knock on plastic, by next year. But in this type of work, it's far better to go slower than faster. And especially from the feedback that we've received from staff, all see value in this work, and we want to make sure that we respect that as well. And in terms of my role and focused weekly walkthroughs of schools and classrooms, Leslie Roach, our Director of Teaching and Learning, and I are in schools several times a week. And our walkthroughs are very focused. Owen, you came with us on our first one to Silverton High School a number of weeks ago. Owen got kind of a firsthand view of how we conduct walkthroughs. And of course, all of you have seen the template that I send out to you each week with the photographs. That's exactly what we go off of. We just want to go in, and then what types of evidence are we looking for? Just to see that the training is having an impact, that the time we're allotting is having an impact. And any of that feedback, we hand it right back to the principal. It's not our role to do anything more than that. It's our role to make sure from a system standpoint that our schools are resourced enough to get the work done. And I just wanted to say also, to be able to do any of this work now this year is incredible, and our teachers deserve all the credit for that. It truly is amazing what Allison mentioned to you, the things that teachers have to do this year just to make sure that kids stay learning. Jennifer, I know you've spoken, you and I have spoken on the fact that you need to substitute teach in your role as an ESL coordinator at your school, in your district. It's the same here, and I'm extremely grateful to be here in Silver Falls to work with such dedicated staff. Moving forward into opening up our practices, this is another really, really important one, especially when we're talking about communities' trust in us, or what drives our success engine, which is a huge part, and that is the listening sessions this year. We just finished our 7th community listening session with Silvercrest. That was a string of K-8 listening sessions that are going to be culminated in a final report that I'll deliver to the Long Range Facilities Planning Committee. But even more so than that, there was so much more data that we collected that we'll use for other things as well. And hopefully that will be a formal report that will stand the test of time that we can look back to and use to base other decisions when we look towards the future. And our staff listening sessions are starting this week and will continue for the rest of the year also. We also have superintendent work groups that involve our community members. I'm so grateful for the community members who are part of the policy work group in helping us with, Dan, I don't know the exact number, but at least 250 policy updates is what I inherited when I first got here to Silver Falls. And we are certainly making an enormous dent in that. We still have 4 or 5 months to go. This could not be done without our community members. It could not be accomplished. I'm so grateful for that. Our work group to help us design the process for the K-8 community work listening sessions. I'll be meeting with that group to report back to them on how those meetings went. That was 21 members of our K-8 community and a couple representatives from the town. And then a new work group we're starting is the music education work group, which will start in January. And you've read about that in each of my weekly updates, that that work group will be facilitated by Leslie Roach and Teaching and Learning. And the recommendation that comes out of that work group must pass the 3-prong test. Sustainability is a big one. Sustainability is something that we really need to have so that our programs are not at the whims of budget reductions and economic downturns. And I've added in a couple of other things there in terms of reaching out to our community. We've restructured our district office a bit to create a welcome center for our families whose first language is not English. And we have just hired our bilingual community liaison, Yolanda Zavala, who has started, I believe, a couple weeks ago. She's been with us at the central office. And then just additional ways of advocating for our district at the community and state level. When we get to finance, this is a very, very complicated area right now. Silver Falls School District has always enjoyed stable enrollment. It's always been a net positive in to the district. This is the first year we've ever experienced, last year and this year were the first years we've ever experienced decreasing enrollment. Right now, we are down 10%. That's 400 kids. That's $3.7 million. That is a lot. Our general fund is $43 million. That is a big chunk. And yes, we remain hopeful that we will get many of those students back. But I think it's the opinion of our finance chief and of me, myself, that we won't get all of them. And so that's something that we really need to be thinking about. The savings that we've been making with attrition and not rehiring positions, the restructuring of our PERS bond that our business office took on so diligently, and then the ESSER funding, the several millions of dollars of federal funding that have come in that have really bridged the gap for us last year to this year. I cannot overstate that, how important those funds have been to us. We would be in a much different scenario right now without federal funding. And a couple of the other things we're working on is to standardize the budget allocation model, the staffing allocation model for Silver Falls. And that is to work with our principals, and I'll be working with you as a board to move to a more standardized model with how we resource our schools. And so that we start basing those resources off of FTE and not off of dollar amounts. And the FTE is really important because that makes up 85% of our budget anyway, is in salaries and staffing. And that in no way takes away a principal's flexibility to decide what is best for their school, but rather gives us a way to have a strong core on how we resource our schools that is totally transparent, that we can say to our community, this is the model that we follow in Silver Falls to resource our schools. And this is what it looks like. And so that'll be a collaborative process, and I will give you updates on that as we go. Certainly, we would like to have a standardized model that is clearly indicates how we allocate staffing, but also really highlights the flexibility that principals have to make the best decisions for their schools. And that would be taken into account as well. And then lastly, in terms of the broad strokes of finance, we need to start preparing now for a general obligation bond. And even though it's difficult to conceptualize that right now, and you as a board will decide when the appropriate time is, we need to start now thinking about it so that when the time comes for when it is appropriate, we are ready to go. Every year that we wait, everything becomes more and more expensive. And I can't imagine the state that our buildings are in right now, what that will look like if we don't start acting now to be prepared for when you decide as a board the appropriate time. And again, as I've stated before, I truly believe that this is the #1 issue facing Silver Falls in the future, because we're talking about affecting generations of children, many of whom are not born yet. And we have kids in a middle school that is not going to stay up forever. They are in a school where we had to fix it just to make it safe enough to have students there. And it is safe for now, but it will not last forever. And I think this is going on my 2nd year in Silver Falls, but I think you would agree with me that the middle school reflect the love and respect we have for our students. And so to me, it doesn't really make sense because of how connected our community is to its schools and how much love there is in our community for our kids. And lastly, under the standard 8, and I've circled it, but really what it says in that language is cultivates a respectful and responsive relationship with the district board, focused on achieving the shared mission and vision of the district. And I know for me, a huge focus since I got here in July of 2020 is working on my relationships with all of you. And we strive to get you all the information that you need to make your decisions. And at least for me, it's a source of pride to provide you each week with a full written report of what it is that we're working on, along with progress updates and major systems issues, upcoming events, and some professional learning for you as well. Whether you read the assignments that I send out or not, I think you know that we are leading in the school district by learning, and we are the lead learners, the 8 of us here. And so if nothing else, I think you know that that's important. And then Jonathan and Jennifer, I meet weekly with you as the board chairs to just bring you up to speed on the status of where we are with the pandemic and other crisis related things, progress updates, and just to create a general link between the office of the superintendent and the Silver Falls School District Board. I think that is extremely important that we have those meetings. And you've heard me say this many times before, and I'll end on this, that I'm really grateful to all of you for really embracing the #No Surprises concept, that we really strive not to surprise each other with issues or with questions that require a very thoughtful response. Of course, we welcome questions, and this is a very appropriate place to ask your superintendent questions about a variety of things, but I just really wanted to say thank you for taking that seriously, and I know we do on our team here. And so with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you. Yeah, any questions or comments for Sam?
I just have feedback. One of the things that strikes me about this presentation is that there's nothing in there that I didn't already know. Nothing in there that I actually hadn't heard several times. And so I really appreciate that communication piece. And I do appreciate that you have organized it so nicely, and that I didn't do. So thank you very much for that piece. But just love that it was well communicated ahead of to us every step along the way. And I really like that as a model for evaluation in general. Evaluation isn't something that you should just do at these certain marks of the year. It's like a cycle, right? And so I appreciate that you're modeling this cycle for us. And also I love it that you gave credit in your presentation, so much credit along the way. That's something I learned at the Leadership Institute this summer. And so I just wanted to tell you that, or show you that I learned that and noticed that you're doing it.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Anybody else?
Yeah, just wanted to say that, Scott, I really appreciate that you've dovetailed all of these different tools. I think it's easy to have so many different tools that we use, and they all sort of drive the train in different directions. And so I find it really helpful that you continue to pivot back to the strategic plan, that you've linked it in with what you're doing daily, weekly, monthly, and that you've then, for our purposes for this evaluation, tied it into these OSBA standards. So I really like that. I like it when things are connected and we can see it all in one place and know that we're all on the same page. So thank you for that. I did have a quick question though.
Sure.
On the numbers, I didn't understand. I tried to figure it out. I tried to be smart, but I couldn't figure it out. So the reading and math figures that you were giving,
Yep.
what were the B, the S, and the I? Can
Sure.
just
So
help me
thank
out
you
with
for bringing that up. It's
Yeah.
so funny because whenever I start talking about data, I go back to being a principal, and these it's like speaking another language. So thank you for reminding me. B and in green there. So if we look at kindergarten, that would mean that 39% are where they need to be. So B would stand for benchmark.
Okay.
The S would stand for strategic. So benchmark, that's about where 85% of the kids should be.
Mm.
And then benchmark is around where 10%, the kids should be. And then intensive is the kids we really want to zero in on. That's kids that are 2 or more years below grade level. And that the I is for intensive. And as you see, the 39, 20, and 28, yes, those are concerning numbers to me. Now is, what do we do about it? So it's the reason why I didn't drill too much into the data there.
Sure.
What I'd like to do is take you through what it is we have in February as an update.
Okay.
And then by the end of the year. So what we want is to catch those kids up as quickly as possible.
Okay. Well, and it makes sense to me that the 1st through 8th, part of what got them through this difficult time was they had already had a start. They'd had a solid
Yes,
start.
that's true.
Those kindergartners never got that.
Yep.
So the numbers certainly make sense from that perspective. So I think it is helpful, though, to your point, to have these as a starting point, and we'll look forward to seeing where they go. So thank you.
Thank you, Janet. Other questions?
Other comments? Yeah, other comments or questions? Well, I appreciate the thoroughness and the good presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Okay. That moves us to our financial report with Steve.
Thank you, Jonathan. Good evening, everybody. As we've been starting each month off, I want to focus on the current enrollment report and the fact that ODE did provide an updated estimate a week ahead of time, which is good. So we could talk about it at this month's board meeting. As you can see from the report, nothing has changed. We're still down 400 students, as Scott highlighted. It's a number that we arrived at last February. We decreased throughout last school year, hit the low around February, and that's where we still are. As Scott said, that's about a $3.6 million impact, but as I've been reporting, the flip side of that is the fact that most school districts in the state are seeing a decrease. So once we start to get those numbers in, it would increase the amount per student. So this is why we've been waiting for the first update since May. So they came out with it last week, and I will post this estimate as an additional attachment on my financial report on Board Book tomorrow. And I'll post both the November 2nd update, and actually we had one in May and one in June. So I think the one before this was June 24th. So I was under the impression that the state would take first quarter actuals from every school district in the state as we report those at the beginning of October. That is not the case. They usually report the actuals after the second period. So what they did do was they encouraged all school districts to go online. They opened the data collection again and asked for districts to update their estimates of membership. We do that actually for the next year in December. So we did this last December, had the opportunity to update last spring. As you recall, we budgeted for about 2/3 of our 400 students to return. As you can see, it clearly did not happen. We had some schools that have bumped up and other schools that didn't, and some that have actually declined even since the end of last year. What we were told in the estimate from ODE was that only 65 school districts, or about 1/3 of the school districts in the state, actually went back in and updated their estimates. We were one of those. And so there was a net drop of 13,500 weighted ADM statewide. So the estimate was 703,000, went down to 689,500 statewide. There's a little over 550,000 students enrollment in the state. And again, around 700,000 when you add all the weighting. So that's only a 2% drop in weighted membership statewide, and we're down 10%. It's possible we're on the high end of districts, but I would have to believe that
of the 2/3 of school districts that didn't update, that they either didn't know, didn't have time, didn't feel like reducing their number quite yet, and wanted to wait. So the true figure really won't come available to us until February, when the second period ADM is, and that's when they'll do the next estimate. So with a drop of 13,500 statewide, it did increase our per student ADM by $200 for our district. It varied a little bit from district to district. Most districts were slightly under $200. Ours was $199. So if you take $200 per ADMW, our ADMW is just under 4,200 now. It was in 2019-20, it was just under 4,600. But that's an $800,000 savings coming back the other way. So we had budgeted about 2/3 return. And so the estimate as it sits right now is $1.9 million less than last year's state school fund and $1.5 million less than the June estimate, or what we essentially budgeted for 2021-22. How do we make that up? Well, you also have to remember, besides a $1.5 million hole revenue wise, we also have increasing costs due to inflation, steps and COLA and that type of thing. I believe we mitigated a great deal of that with the PERS bond that we did, about a $700,000 savings, but that still leaves us with this revenue gap. So, I think there's a few different things to look at. One is, Scott did a good job of highlighting our federal ESSER dollars. We just started using at the end of last year ESSER $2, which was about $1.4 million, and we still had about $1 million left of that. And then ESSER $3 were about $3.2 million, and we haven't even, well, we had plans to use some of that this year. There was a plan submitted to ODE 2 weeks ago, which is still in the review stage, but there's a lot of different allowed uses for that, and part of that is to help support. And 20% of ESSER 3 has to be used for unfinished learning, formerly called learning loss. So decreasing revenue, increased costs, and also need to help students, make up for lost time. So how do you balance all that? It really is a lot of moving targets at once, lots of changing parameters. Scott uses the term building the plane as it's flying, in this case, kind of repairing the plane as it's flying. Every week, we're taking a fresh look at things. We're 2 payrolls into the year now. We had a lot of staff changes as we moved into the school year. We still have some open positions for, some of these programs. And so we're crunching the numbers, seeing where the encumbrances are in the system and seeing just where we're at. We have saved some money through attrition and through other savings measures, but it'll just be a continued review of where we're at, evaluating each position if we do have attrition and if it needs to be rehired or not based on what the position is, trying to support our staff and our students in the best way possible. So utilizing ESSER dollars where we absolutely need to. And the other factor will be, I think we need, over the next couple of months, we'll talk about, and as we go into budgeting, we have the policy for 10% in fund balance, which for the last 2 years now we've been below that, and we will need to look at, especially in a 49% state school funding year, do we use a little bit more of that, especially in a year like this, as we're trying to just figure out where our new normal is and trying to support kids and staff as they come back into an in-person environment that looks different than anything they've had before. So we're trying to balance all of that. And lastly, I do believe as we hit the February estimate, there is a possibility that statewide ADMW could very well be below $689,000. So for every 7,000 ADMW statewide, that's 1%, which in this calculation calculated out to about an extra $100 per student. So it's possible that there could be a little bit more recovery or relief just through that mechanism. Certainly not something we want to count on, but I really do have a hard time believing at this point that statewide it's only down 2%. Now, if some of the restrictions are lifted as we move forward, more families may decide to return their students to school, which would be great, not only for us, but for other school districts in the state. So again, that would then be a changing trend. So anyway, so there's just a lot going on, and this at least gave us some information to go on that we didn't have before, and gives us more in terms of putting the fence around the situation and where we're at. So it's as unstable and unpredictable as it's been in my 21 years as a school business official. So anyway.
Quick question with so we have sort of an anticipated possible shortfall, right?
Mhm.
But we also have some known ESSER dollars and stuff. To remind us all here, the ESSER dollars cover that anticipated shortfall this year, right? Or am I mistaken in that?
Well, we plan on using some for that. One of the allowable uses is for sustainability of operations. Yes. Yes. But I mean, and so we do, and we also have costs that are new due to ESSER, whether it be, PPE, additional cleaning costs, more substitute teaching costs due to, folks that have to stay home in quarantine. So we do have actually costs that, not only, we're maybe cutting in some areas, but we're seeing costs that we can't necessarily control are increasing due to these situations. So those would be things that we could use ESSER dollars for as well. But we're also trying to figure out a way that we could use some ESSER $3 to attack some more ventilation issues, for example, because that was something that why they, increased each round of federal stimulus dollars increased as a whole and at the education level for things like that. So it's really hard to know exactly, exactly how much you may use in a certain area just because the situation's ever changing. ESSER $3 could also be used through September 30th, 2024.
So to kind of dovetail on that statement, we are in a shortfall, but we have relief. We have
unsustainable relief, yes.
Yeah.
But it's,
Yeah.
I believe this year, again, when we were budgeting, we didn't even know what service model we would be in, come the start of the school year. So if there was ever a year, I mean, it's not sound fiscal policy, but it is there for a reason. And, no one's ever been put in this position before. So I'm thankful we have it. Absolutely.
It could be a lot worse is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Well, and I guess I appreciate the ESSER dollars versus the possibility of sustaining staff levels, because we have a workforce issue right now, and that's never been more apparent to me in my education career. So anyway, just thinking out loud.
Yep, absolutely. So our finance work group reassembles next week. So we'll talk even more about this.
Great.
And you two are in the group.
I got to remember. I got to make sure I remember it's on my calendar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me
Send
know
us a
if you-
reminder.
Yeah, I think it's next Wednesday. Tuesday or Wednesday, sorry.
We nerd out together.
Right.
I love it. Numbers.
Steve, did you want to?
No, I'm sorry, that's it. I'll post these SSF estimates on as additional links so that everyone could access it.
Well, Steve, we appreciate your experience and lending that experience to Silver Falls School District during this time. So thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. Well, that's going to move us to 12A, Budget Committee vacancies. So as you recall back, I want to say it was in August. Am I right? Anyway, sometime, I think it was in August, maybe September. We opened up we had sort of announced that we had the Budget Committee vacancies. And we opened it up for applicants, and Debbie let me know that we've actually had none. So we don't have any. And so, it's kind of funny how it ebbs and flows, right? This was a problem several years ago, and, kind of had to shake the trees a little bit to get some interest. And then just a couple of years ago, we had, I don't know, 12 or something people, I mean, it was a lot, I think.
I think we had the same issue last year too, with the fires and
Right.
everything going on, and we extended it as well.
Right. So we're going to extend it again, and we are going to solicit people that are interested. I pulled up the details here, and I'll share it with all of you and of course with the public. So we have 3 people that are coming off with natural term ending. We have Jacob Clotfilter coming off, Kurt Metzger and Peter Matzka coming off. We also have somebody who's moved out of the district. Nicole Leva was appointed the November 25th, 2019, and she had a year left on that term. So somebody could also apply for that position. It would be for a 1-year term on the budget committee, not a standard 3-year. So those are going to open up. Debbie's going to we're going to post it, I think, on the website and maybe on some social media, but I'm of course sharing with all of you to tell folks that you might know, and anybody watching that we do have this open.
Do you remember what our policy says about how many terms people can serve? I'm wondering if those folks, any of these folks are considering running again. Do we know that for sure? I'd have to bring our policy.
I don't think we know, and I think the policy is nebulous.
Is it?
It is nebulous.
I think it does say 2, but it's at the discretion.
It's at the
of
discretion,
board.
right,
It is,
exactly.
okay.
Yeah.
The suggestion is like 2.
Okay.
So that can be interpreted a lot of different ways.
Yes, indeed. Yeah.
Right.
So we don't know.
But they have to
offhand whether-
reapply regardless.
They do. And
So
they
it's-
have not
and they
done
have
that.
not yet.
Okay, perfect. That answers that question.
Right.
And I think we talked about Parent Square too, right?
Oh, right, yeah, I think so,
Because
right,
that goes
yeah.
out to all parents in the
Right.
district.
Okay.
Any other conversation on this or
What-
question?
How long, what were we thinking of opening it to? Were we going to set a date, like to say we're going to open it till?
It's a great question. I think let's see what another 30-day window does. And
A little bit more publicity maybe. And
right. I mean, it's not actually critical typically until spring, so we try to get it done in the fall, but it can wait. There's not a criticality tied to it right now. Okay. And that's going to move us into our policy update discussion. We don't have any first readings. We have a number of second readings and a final reading tonight. So what I would like to do, I'm not going to go through and read all of the policies by name. You've all had a chance to hopefully look at them. We've had a chance to discuss them on first reading. Does anybody have any policies they would like to discuss tonight?
I have a couple comments to make as a member of the policy committee. JECB, which is admission of non-resident students, has still a little bit of hinky language. Dan, we talked about it on Friday when we were on our Zoom call, and we were having a little confusion with which version of an OSBA draft. The one that we have in front of us tonight is still not quite the right one. The language is fairly minimal, though. It really is sort of syntax and grammar. So depending upon your comfort, we can either just leave it here, pass it as a second, and make sure we have the most current up to date for the third, or we can pull it. But it's not a substantive change. It's just that we are wrestling with this little piece of language that's difficult. It's the tuition,
Yeah,
districts.
my recommendation would be to pass it on to the third reading and let's get the syntax corrected on it, because it doesn't change.
Correct.
It doesn't change how the policy is implemented.
Okay.
Okay.
If there's no substantive change, I trust you guys to get the.
To
grammar
just get
syntax.
that right, yeah. And then the second one that I committed to doing a little follow-up on was the JHCA/JHCB, which is immunizations, physical examinations, vision screening, and dental screening. So I had asked about a couple things. One was, if you all remember, that the language indicated that for homeless students, we wouldn't require those records for enrollment, right? We can't by law. But that we talked a little bit about, well, shouldn't we put some language in there about, well, we're not just going to let it drop. We're going to, as we can and as it's appropriate, we'll find those records. The advice from Leslie Fisher at OSBA was to consult our language in JECBD, which is, I guess, additional content for homeless students and rely on the homeless student liaison and other policy to meet those requirements related to records, and don't put anything additional in this one.
Okay.
So that was her recommendation. So if at some future time we feel like we need to address that, we can figure out what some of our other protocols are with our homeless students, but it did not seem like it was good to put it in here. And then the other question we had was about the dental screenings and whether those were required by law, and they are. So the language that we have in our policy is the correct language. It is statutorily required, so we just need to make sure that we're carrying it out.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Janet.
Mhm.
Jonathan and board members, I do want to point out that we did find a mistake or something that we need to look into on policy JGE on expulsion. There was a date, there was a notice extension changing the policy from a notice will be given to the student and the parent by personal service or by certified mail. At least it used to be 5 days and the recommended change was 10. And my recollection on the board was to make sure that that letter or whatnot got there, had enough time to get there. But then we also realized as an administrative team that you have to hold that hearing within 10 days. And so I'm just making you aware that I need to look into this a little bit more and may come back at the third reading with this return to 5 days.
Okay.
So the previous policy was 5 days. I think it was an intent to make sure that there was time to get there, but we weren't thinking about the implication of having to have that hearing done within 10 days. So I again don't think that this should delay the third reading. But we'll have that updated when it comes up for third reading.
And I think it's a really important point. So I think all of us probably have a working assumption that if we go to a second or third reading, that they're the same as they were when we looked at them the first time. If there are substantive, anything that's remotely substantive, be sure to bring that up and make sure we bring it up maybe on the screen or we talk about it. We've changed this since the first reading,
Right.
You're
not going to read all of them again.
Right, exactly.
Unless your attention is called to
And even if I
something
did, I might not cognitively
right.
point out or recognize that we changed that from the first reading
Right.
to the second. So that would be helpful, really helpful.
Mhm.
Make sure to do that. Are there other questions, comments, concerns about any of these that are on second or third reading? We only have one on a third reading. Let's just remind everybody, it's JEC admissions. This is final reading. And we will be having a vote to approve that later. Okay. That moves us to our second public comment. Is there anybody online that is requesting to speak? We'll give it a little bit because we just switched gears here.
I'm not seeing any hands being raised.
Okay. Well, with that being said, we are going to move into our action items. So we do have the one final reading, and that's actually our only action item tonight. So at this point, I would accept the motion to approve JEC admissions, the policy as updated and published on Board Book.
I move to approve the version of JEC admissions as published on Board Book.
So moved.
Second.
And seconded. Any other discussion? All right, Debbie.
Jonathan,
Yes.
Jennifer,
Yes.
Janet,
Yes.
Tom,
Aye.
Aaron,
Yes.
Lori,
Yes.
Owen.
Yes.
Thank you, all in favor.
All right, thanks, everybody. Next up, we have our future agenda item request. This is a chance for you guys to share briefly something that might be on your mind for a future agenda item.
There's plenty going on.
I've heard a few things about the lunch program with Sodexo. And is that something that could be an agenda item, or is that in your court? I'm just bringing it up only because I've heard it from parents, and I don't necessarily know what all the options are, but if that's something we could look at and discuss in the future, I would appreciate it, but I'll leave it at that. Anybody objects, I guess?
Yeah, thank you. We'll talk about it, I guess. I don't even quite know all the ins and outs of it, so we can talk
Yeah,
about whether it
I know.
belongs or not.
Right, okay.
All right. Well, guys, I really appreciate it. It is 9:02. And we're meeting adjourned.
All right, thank you.
Thank you all.
You.